I also want to start on the Levines because on a personal note, this is kind of, I think we've all had the fantasy as a kid that, you know, like we come home from school, I'll speak for myself. As a kid, that fantasy of coming home from school one day and, you know, your house is destroyed and your parents are nowhere to be seen. The Levines were always the ones that I fantasized would take me in and raise me in their nice big family and their beautiful house. So in a way, this is kind of a fulfillment of that. Has anybody seen our house lately? And here they are, and we're celebrating this joyous occasion. So thank you to Levines very much. This is the first thing I'm going to say really in any public way to Tani and Sarah, because there was a strict, justifiably strict no speeches policy at the wedding, because who wants speeches when you're eating and dancing? And so it turns out that it's a good thing, because when I think about what I want to say about Tani, and I can say this to you, I can call him Tani to you people, because we all know him from growing up. The wedding is all these people who know him as, you know, Nate or Nathaniel, and the things that I want to say, the people at the wedding who know him as Nathaniel or Nate, like, they won't believe it. They'll be like, oh, Nathaniel Sugarman, he's a Nathaniel Sugarman, international lawyer, and we'll put Nathaniel Sugarman right on it. And Nathaniel Sugarman, no worries, Nathaniel's on the job. But, so the things that I'm going to say are not, and by the way, you should probably put your champagne down because it's going to get warm for what I have to say here. Yeah, you can use this time. So, yeah, so it's good that I got to say my remarks to this crowd, who all knew Tani, which is what I'm going to continue to call him, growing up. After the wedding in Israel, my girlfriend and I spent some time in Spain, which is where she's from. And in Spain, they have this great expression: when you don't want somebody to bring up something embarrassing from the past, you say, "No tires de la manta." Don't pull it out of the rug. And it turns out that this expression, it comes from my girlfriend's hometown in the north of Spain, Tudela, which is famous for having a history of Jews and Arabs, or Muslims and Christians. And there was a time when obviously the Jews all had to leave at once. But a few of them stayed behind, and they converted and they changed their names, and they thought they were sort of, you know, they could go undercover with their secret new names. But the church kind of wanted to let them know, we still see you, and they sewed all of their names, their old names, into a tapestry and hung that in the church. And that is the origin of this expression. Don't go pulling, no tiras de la manta, don't go pulling it out of the rug. Don't go pulling our old names out. But this is going to be a speech about Tani, not Nathaniel. So, how do I put this? A lot of us remember Tani as not the most patient child. And what I mean by that is whenever Tani wanted something, or had a goal, or something that he really wanted to do, whatever was in between where he is now and that thing over there became stuff that he had to get through really quickly and expeditiously. And you know, whatever was in between Tani and that thing that he wanted, whether it was Joseph or homework, it just had to be gotten rid of as quickly as possible. And this became like this was the most vivid. It was the most challenging, I'm going to use that word, to deal with on family trips, which we took a lot of. We took great trips as a family. And some of you may remember the sort of mobile living room unit that my parents bought at a certain point, which is basically, it was a big van, which was outfitted inside with basically like it was like a nice living room that could take you to Maine. And it had the centerpiece in the back was the TV and the VCR. And basically the whole point of that was just to give Joseph a fighting chance of surviving until his bar mitzvah. Because if Tani was ever like not distracted for a moment from the fact that you weren't where you wanted to be, he would resort automatically to his favorite pastime, which is, you know, crushing Joseph. And if you weren't there, it's like funny now, but just just like torturing Joseph and like taking away his bunny and pinching him and pulling his beard.
I have noticed that at Thanksgiving dinners, the three of you kind of do that to each other now. Not Michael. Michael pushes Joseph over in the chair.
It's a speech about Tani, so we get to make Okay. We all know lots of things happen in families. We're talking about this thing.
Thanksgiving.
So I'm getting off track. So family trips. And that was the thing. Like it was the time in between where we were and then when we wanted to go that we always had to occupy Tani during. And so fast forward about a quarter of a century, and it was last summer, and I was visiting these guys in Israel, and we were going to the beach, and I don't know if any of you have ever seen Tani's bathing costume. Some of us have. It's if you can imagine somebody, this isn't relevant then, but like you can imagine somebody getting dressed for a disco in like Europe, like black tight things on and like underwear, and then but without the pants and like jewelry. That's Tani's beach outfit. So imagine that, but imagine that outfit on Tani walking down the street towards the beach, and I'm struggling to keep up, and I'm a pretty fast walker. And I know this because people are routinely asking me to slow down, so I'm minded to it. The only person in the world who I have to ask to slow down is Tani. And it hit me then, in the way that sometimes we realize these things when we know people well, but we haven't seen them in a while. It hit me then very vividly that Tani is essentially the same person that he's always been, Nathaniel, whatever, but he's transformed that like impatience into this immense focus now, and that desire to get where he's going has turned into this ability to just set a goal and to achieve it. And whether it's the feasts that he prepares, and he's a very accomplished chef now, or the fact that he just decided to up and uproot his life from one country and move it in total to another, and then in short order was set up with a whole social circle and with a job and his professional life, his social life, all in order from scratch. It's a remarkable thing. It's amazing that he's been able to do that. But of course, the most amazing achievement of all is standing right there holding his hand. And I think Tani would be the first to say that. But I think Tani kind of went about this whole thing, at least at first, the same way. And obviously Sarah had lots to do with it too. But I remember at first, like Tani calling Sarah up. They had met briefly. Some of you may know the story. But they had met briefly, and Tani, started calling Sarah because he decided, Sarah's my next Sarah. This is the goal now. And this is the girl. And Sarah doesn't know who this is. Like, never mind the fact that Sarah has no idea who's calling her now. And never mind the fact that when she did kind of figure it out, she's like, oh, right, that guy with like the silky, black, tight, and like the shirt unbuttoned to the nib with like it looks like maybe he waxes. Like, you're romantically interested in my whole half of the species, right? But that all got worked out. And thank goodness, because we were talking about this over Shabbat. It's impossible to imagine, like if we could synthesize, and we have the minds here in Brookline to do it, if we could like synthesize the perfect match for Tani, we couldn't possibly do better than Sarah, because not only is she beautiful and wonderful and smart and clever, but she knows this unique trick for soothing him when he's, as we all get agitated or aggravated. She's like a Tani whisperer. She knows. It's like she knows when to put on like the Winnie the Pooh video in the van. When it's not great. But what's perfect about it is that Tani knows also exactly when to do that for Sarah, and they're a beautiful match that way. And I think that's a wonderful basis for a relationship, which is essentially this long journey together. So I'm wrapping this up. But the parsha of Tani's opera, when he got his aliyah to the Torah, he put on his talit for the first time at the wedding, was Vet Chanan. And it's towards the end of the 5 books of Moses, so it's wrapping everything up. And it's sort of recapping, we read the 10 Commandments again, and there's this very poignant passage where Moshe Rabbeinu, goes up to a bluff, and God shows him a view of the land of Israel, that he's been toiling for the last 40 years to drive the stiff-necked people through the desert, through all this agita to get to, and God tells him, you're not going to get to go in. And you can look at it from here, but that's as far as you're going to get. And it feels very tragic. But I see that as an affirmation of the journey, because I think that destinations are essential to have because they provide a volition and they give you something to move towards. But really, it's about the journey, because as soon as you get to wherever it is you're going, you're off and running somewhere else, and there's something else to accomplish. So really, you learn everything on the journey. And Moshe is called Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe our teacher, not Moshe Ro'enu, our shepherd, Moshe Mandigenu, our leader. Everything we learn in the journey. So I want to wish these two, and this is the part where we can raise our glasses. I just want to say that may Tani and Sarah, may your journey be long and full of wonderful adventures, and may neither of you ever forget where the secret stash of emergency Disney videos.